Hello everyone. So I'm 25 years old and slowly I am becoming okay with that. 5 years ago when I turned 20, I was terrified to be in my 20s. It was the first age that I'd reached that forced me to assess and compare myself to a preconceived idea of that age. So, confused and directionless, I made a little video that compiled all the little bits of wisdom that I'd accumulated. As an advice line for my past self, a reassurance for my present self, and as a sort of cryptic diary entry marking the end of a lot of life experiences that led me to that point, to look back on and kind of contextualise who I was. But of course, it has been 5 long human Earth years since then, so I thought it would be nice to do the same thing again from a very different position in life. Here we go. I also managed to find not the same shirt, but pretty much the same shirt as the last one, as a little tribute to 20-year-old Kim. So here I am again, cosplaying as my past self. You do not need that drink that you're about to buy. It's time to stop, drink some water, and go home. Make a rule for yourself that you'll just never buy impulse purchases. Leave it at least 1 week, and if you still want it, then you can consider buying it. Cancel your subscription to that service during your free trial. Most of them will still let you use the service until you reach the end of your trial, and then it's just done. You dumbo. Whatever it is, write it down. You are not going to remember it. Do not mindlessly shove an important receipt into a random pocket. Back up your hard drives. I've told you before, you've had enough chances. Back them up. Do it today. Do it right now. Stop scrolling through things mindlessly on your phone. Put it down and go to bed. And if you're in bed, go to sleep. Although that's quite hard. Go to bed. Be committed to implementing the routine of checking for dishes before you leave your room. Never, ever format an SD card without checking it first, even if you think you're sure. Just double check. This one was a big revelation for me. It is actually physically possible to own multiple sets of bed sheets, which means that you you don't have to take them off, wash them, dry them, and put them all back in the same day. You can have 2. I'm so embarrassed. So many years. And it wasn't even like I would manage it. I would not manage it, and then I'd sleep on my bed with no bed sheets on for like 2 nights because they weren't dry. You can own 2, okay? You can also own multiple towels. No one told me that. Read the recipe all the way through before you start it. Make an effort to get to know your neighbours, even just a little bit. Even if you start off on the wrong foot. Because it is so nice to go from noise complaints to exchanging cupcakes with people. It's good for the soul. It is actually, studies have proved this, it's impossible to keep a car tidy. It's just impossible. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Taxi drivers, not real people, not real cars, so don't feel so bad about it. Just throw out your old socks and undies that have holes in them. You don't need, what are you going to use them for? You don't have to have like B grade and D grade and F grade underwear in your drawer or box that you only wear when you run out of undies. Why don't you just replace those? You just add in backups to backups to backups. Stop the madness. On that note, I know it's hard to believe, but if you're going on a trip, you actually genuinely don't need 4 pairs of underwear per night. I know. So far, it turns out that you probably won't piss yourself 4 times a day for 8 days, you know? Okay, also, stay with me here. Pick a day that you're gonna do your laundry and do it before you run out of pants. Now, I know that'll be obvious to some people, but I also know that there are more of you out there than you're willing to admit for whom this is a revelation. Because it doesn't even need to be the same day. It's not like it needs to be a weekly event. I do laundry like at a push once a fortnight because I got a lot of pants that I need to throw out. Never, ever, ever trust landlords or letting agents. Every time you meet a new one, you're gonna be like, oh, these guys are way different from the last ones. But they're not. I thought I had a nice landlady, and then the rain leaked through my smoke alarm into a bucket, and it would fill up like half a bucket in a few hours. And she was angry at me because she'd apparently had the roof fixed a year ago. Sorry. And that was the nicest one I ever had. These letting agents ignored our complaints and eventually allowed a rat to start living in our house and then didn't act for several days until we threatened to withhold rent. Our last letting agents stole our fridge. Every time they say something, make sure you get it in writing. If you go for a viewing and then you say, yeah, we're happy to sign for this house as long as you fix X, Y, and Z, and they're like, oh yeah, of course, and the whole thing's going to be repainted, send them an email and be like, hi, as per our discussion, we would like to sign for this house as long as X, Y, and Z are fixed, and you're going to paint the fucking wall so they can't wiggle out of it, because they will wiggle out of it. This one is the version of myself who likes to go to festivals, and for anyone else who also enjoys festivals, listen. I know you're having a nice time, but it doesn't just take 15 minutes to nip back to the tent and get a drink. You're not going to make it to that stage in time. It is going to take minimum 90 minutes. Minimum. It doesn't even matter where you're going. Like small festivals, 90 minutes. And also on that journey, when you do get back to the tent, don't sit down and have a can. You've got a deadline. Just get up and go. I want you to pay particularly close attention to this one, okay? Don't put your phone on the toilet water dispenser. Or the Sanny bin, because it's going to stay there for a long time until you go back to find it. If you're hanging out with someone and you think something nice about them, just give them the compliment. Just say it. And on that note, if someone compliments you, just say thank you. Even if it means that you then immediately crumple and fold yourself up into a tiny little ball and insert yourself into the bin, just say thank you first, because sometimes not doing that makes people feel small. Don't just limit yourself to the same group of friends you've had for ages. If you've got a friend of a friend that you get on with well, or someone from work that you're just kind of making friends with, properly reach out to them. Some of the most unexpectedly close and beautiful friendships are found in friends of friends or co-workers. Common interest with everyone around you is lurking in the shadows, except in a less creepy way than that made it sound. Be that person at work that is inviting and welcoming to the new guy. It's so scary being in a new job. If you see them looking confused by the till, offer them help before they ask, just in case they're a bit too nervous to. Regularly and confidently tell the people you care about how important they are to you. There is so much that people feel towards each other that they just think goes without saying. It never does. All those insecurities that you have about whether people like you are in everyone else around you. And it is so, so valuable to just be able to confidently say, hey, you're really great. Thank you for being supportive. I'm really glad we're friends. People and life could be gone suddenly at any moment. Why not make your communications more meaningful? Start a list on your phone of good gift ideas for friends and family. And then if someone's birthday's coming up and you have some money, you have this whole resource of things that they might like. Also, if you're able to, start a little money box or a pot on Monzo for gifts for your friends. Because if you do have the money to put aside, it's really nice to get to Christmas or someone's birthday and know that you do have quite a nice little budget just to get them something special. As a rule, never, no matter who it is, make a comment about someone's weight, even if you think you're paying them a compliment. You never know what unhealthy habits you might be inadvertently supporting. You do not have any kind of moral obligation to your employer. The way that service industry jobs work is that they make the staffing as lean as possible, so that if someone's ill, everyone else will suffer. But that's not the ill person's fault. And then weirdly, specifically in those types of jobs as well, they really play up this whole like camaraderie and family thing to try and guilt you into not doing the things that you need to do in your life. It is nice to cover people's shifts if they suddenly want to have the night off for something and you're available. Of course it's nice. But if your managers and the company you work for have built their entire business model around the fact that it is possible for all members of staff on a restaurant floor to just suddenly be completely screwed over by one person's rearrangement, you do not have an obligation to go in on what would have been your only night off in 3 weeks just to help them out. Managers of particularly chains of that kind of thing are trained to try and make you feel guilty. And a lot of the time, some of them don't even know they're doing it. But you can sacrifice anything, right? You can sacrifice going to a birthday party that was really important to your friend and that you were really looking forward to. You can miss the birth of a nephew, not get to hang out with your friend who's about to move away. You can come home early from your family home for a funeral, and none of it will ever truly be appreciated because it doesn't matter to the company. There are exceptions, of course, and a lot of the time the managers themselves are the victims of this system. But you don't have to feel guilty that you're not going to cancel your holiday that you've had booked for 6 months just to cover some shifts and make some chicken. I've rearranged shift timings with like 4 or 5 people in one job just so that I can be available to go and cover someone in another job, but then gone there and just done the usual 8-hour restaurant shift without being allowed to sit down or eat any food. It doesn't make a difference. Do your job well. Take home your pay and give no more of your soul than you need to. The absolute most valuable social life skill that you can acquire is to learn to truly and honestly apologize. I think just the humility necessary to reflect and empathize enough that you admit that you've hurt someone and validate that to be able to apologize in a really meaningful way is a really good first step to be able to exercise that honesty with people in other situations. Forcing yourself to get past that initial fear of confrontation, taking someone aside and being like, hey, I'm really sorry, I've thought about it and you were right, I apologize, is so beneficial to the trust in your relationship with that person. And the more you do it, the easier it is. And it's just so useful across the board. Learning to go to your boss and be like, hello, this was my fault. I'm really, really sorry. This is why it happened. And I made this mistake and this error of judgment, but I completely understand the effects of what I've done, and therefore I'm going to take this step to try and prevent it from happening again. It's just so good. And in my experience, if your boss is not a horrible person, there'll suddenly just be this sigh of relief in the room that things have been addressed and you can all move forward in a much more productive way. Equally, apologising to my own staff was such a really important thing for me to learn to do. I'm a human being. Sometimes I'll forget that someone has asked for a really important day off. Sometimes I'll get stressed on a shift and I'll snap at someone unfairly. But just going to the person that you've wronged and acknowledging it is so good. Life gets so much better. Because it also doesn't have to be some huge conversation every time. Small errors can have small apologies. Hey mate, I'm really sorry that I snapped at you earlier. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I was stressed and I unfairly took it out on you. I'm sorry. Sigh of relief. Because once people know that they can trust you to acknowledge your errors and apologise for them and accept blame for hurt that you've caused, they're so much more willing to come to you with issues. They're so much more willing to raise concerns with you that they might have otherwise been too scared to, that could have built into a huge thing. And you can just work towards creating environments where you and the people around you are just upfront and kind to each other. And on that note, turns out it is actually possible to have near perfect communication with another person in a relationship. It is actually possible if all parties involved are willing to work at it. And once you've achieved that with people, you will never settle for anything less. All the relationships you have with everyone around you will just gradually be chipping away at all those little unhealthy tendencies you have. All those times where you don't tell each other the full truth. All those times you think you're protecting your own feelings, but actually it can come across kind of passive aggressive. They'll just start to disappear. If someone in your life that you care deeply about does something that goes against your morals, does something that is not in keeping with your principles, and you make the decision to cut them out based on that, it doesn't make you a bad person to miss them. People are made of a messy, equal mix of good and bad. Nobody is just one of those things, and nobody is who they are forever. It's an unexpected change of tone, isn't it? But an important one. And on that important change of tone, it is not enough to just not be prejudiced. It is not even enough to just call out overt prejudice when you see it, because that is just when you see it. The systems that allow these inequalities to exist have survived for centuries because they are very good at hiding from those who are not directly affected. It's easier for men to think that there's not much sexism going on around them. It's easier for straight people to think that homophobia is largely behind us. And it is easier for white people to come to the conclusion that racism is no longer the huge institutionalized force that it once was. Because these beliefs are designed to shift and evolve to survive in a modernized world. It is designed for you not to see it. Educate yourself. Listen to people. Analyze how these biases are manifesting in yourself, your family, your workplace, your community. Identify it and call it out. Racism is a poison. And it just might have built your nation. It sourced the material for the ground in your home. It sold you petrol for your car. It infiltrated your society, hiding in plain sight, and masked itself by adapting to live in the hearts of those whose stories you've been taught to trust implicitly before you were even born. It thoughtfully and carefully stocked the shelves of your bookshops. It wrote the codes and conventions of the media you consume. It was a co-writer and casting director on all of your favourite childhood TV shows. And until we are willing to admit that fact, progress will not move forward.